Welcome. This is Our Android Week with Alan Furstenberg in New York, Bruce Turner in Lynchburg, Virginia, Duke Carrico in Kingsport, Tennessee. Today is Kalut in Newport Beach, California, and in Menifee, California, Pam Adger. This is Our Android Week. Good to have you with us. I'm Dan McDermott, joining me from New York, Alan. So we're hearing about Android Auto. The first head units from Pioneer are out, and I guess they don't do much unless you have a car equipped for that, and those are just, there aren't many, but more are coming, I guess.
Well, yeah, Android Auto doesn't work very well without a car. Hence the name Android
I mean,
Auto.
a car equipped with functionality to work with this, right?
Well, these Pioneer units are in-dash replacement units. That's the point of them. So they're made to go into your dashboard the same way that once upon a time you would put in a Pioneer radio system when all you had was your old, 8-track tape player. So the whole point of these is to provide the Android Auto functionality for cars that don't have it equipped. But we are seeing cars that are beginning to come out with Android Auto support. I think Scion or Hyundai currently have one.
Okay. I just deleted and undeleted the topic list. So that's our show. Thanks. All right, so Android, is it going to become a thing?
I think it will. I don't think it'll become a big thing, but I think it'll become a thing. It will be pretty neat that instead of having to, awkwardly clip your Android phone into some dashboard mount unit and stare at the tiny screen, you've now got a bigger screen that is better designed to deal with maps and so forth. You'll have some fairly carefully designed apps that will work on it. The Android Auto's got some real good design behind it that is mostly there to replace what you're already doing with your phone. Just do it better.
Everything's getting computerized. One day we'll laugh about how we had analog screwdrivers, before the revolution. The first hint I ever saw of this sort of thing was internet coming to soda machines, and it'd be neat if the route driver would know exactly what product to bring, right? And then electric meters and so on. So another
The
thing,
internet-enabled soda machine's been around for a good 30 or so years.
it's been a while. So next is Android Wear can now help you find your lost phone if it's nearby and the power's on. So that's handy.
Well, no. I mean, it basically it's able to be reporting where your phone last was. So if for some reason you leave your phone down and you walk away, your Android Wear device is going to know where it last saw it because it was last talking to it there. So it'll know where you lost touch with it, where it was last when you lost touch with it. It's a pretty clever solution.
My Note 2 has a similar feature where if you remove the stylus and you leave a restaurant and you left it on the chair, the phone starts beeping, if it loses track of it, so you don't leave it somewhere. It's kind of a neat idea. Okay, next is, this is kind of a larger story, but the one I cling to, Android apps to get age rating and manual review, and they kind of did a neat way where when you, and this is part of their new apps will not automatically show up. The human at Google will have to approve them before they can show up in the Play Store. And in this case, when you do an app, you'll have to answer some questions about content, and then they will use those answers to determine the appropriate age setting for each geographic area. And then if a specific country is not a subscriber to the convention, then they'll get a generic age rating. So as a developer, what do you think about this?
I've got very mixed feelings about it. On one hand, certainly it addresses some concerns. On the other hand, once again, they've tried to address one problem, and instead of creating a nice generic good solution, created some very, very narrow solutions. But I think this was an understandable effort, one they were kind of forced into. The the real confusing issue here for me is that apps will now be reviewed, which is a major, major departure for the Android Play Store, or what's now known as the Android Play Store. They say they've been doing this for a while now, actually, and the review process has not slowed down submission at all. That, you can still get things submitted incredibly, within hours. I don't know how they're doing that, if so, but it's interesting to see how this plays out.
And this would also apply to updates if any of the content has changed, like if you've suddenly introduced violence that wasn't in there before, that sort of thing.
Well, it says it goes through the review process, which I don't know. It's interesting.
Is it like 9 to 5 Monday through Friday?
Well, that's the question. Is this going to turn into Apple's review process, or is this still going to be, the Android review process where things go onto the store as quickly as possible, and maybe they'll get pulled later?
Now, we've seen stories where controversial apps, they'll say we've submitted it and we're waiting. I think Google, some of their apps have been that situation. Is Apple known? Is that a typical long delay, or is that a pretty quick process? How do they do it?
Apple is known for their incredibly long delays and arbitrary decisions.
Okay. And on the Pioneer story, Wendell says he has the Pioneer 8100 NEX. Works great, and he installed it himself. Wendell, I'm curious what car you have. And is
Wendell, no, forget. Who cares about what car he has? Wendell, I'm really curious. Have you used the Android Auto component for it yet? I'm curious to hear how well that works. So Wendell, get a hold of us.
Word.
Want to know what car he has?
Well, it says it only works for certain cars.
No, it. Okay, let's clear this up, Dan.
I've read the article.
Uh-huh.
I'll look at it again.
Maybe you need to. Because what Android Auto only works with cars that have Android Auto built into it. Now, some manufacturers are releasing cars with it, and this Pioneer unit is for cars that don't have it currently, in the same way that cars that don't have an 8-track tape deck can get an 8-track tape deck by installing the Pioneer 8-track tape deck. It's an aftermarket add-on. Do you own a car, Dan?
Yeah, I have a 2007 Ford Taurus. I don't think it has Android Auto.
It is unlikely. So if you wanted Android Auto, you could spend $1,000 for one of these Pioneer units and install it.
How much would this be able to do compared to a car that had Android Auto?
All of it.
Okay. All right, cool. So Alan's right and Dan is the other thing. All right, cool. So I'm checking. Wendell says Google has to do a review for any apps that are submitted for use with Android Auto. Must meet certain safety considerations. That makes sense. And he says, yes, he's used it.
That's true. It does. However, the other thing is that they've actually limited what you can do. So it makes it kind of difficult to do things that are unsafe. Not impossible, but kind of difficult. But yeah, that's a risk that Google's taken on. And in that circumstance, it makes sense. But there's been this, and it's the same reason why Glass apps were reviewed. Both for the safety reasons and because it's a very new form factor, and they want to make sure that what gets out there is presented nicely.
And just to be clear on the rating system and the manual review process, you're for the rating system, but you're concerned about how long it's going to take to get the review done.
I am. Well, here's the thing. The two things are not completely related. I'm generally in favor of the new rating system. I think they could have done better, but I'm sure what they did is adequate. It's barely adequate. It's fine. The review process is tied to that in some ways, but it's also independent because they'll be reviewing it for, to make sure that it doesn't contain viruses, which is something they scan for now. They're reviewing it for a number of other things as well. My concern is that the review, they say right now the review process takes hours. My concern is that the review process may start taking longer. And previously, it was possible to get any application into the Play Store, which meant that really new and innovative stuff could get in there, but it also meant that stuff that was a little shady could get in there. I'm glad that they're getting rid of the shady stuff. What I want to make sure of is they don't also get rid of the innovative stuff at the same time.
And Wendell comments, Dan, an Android auto-compatible aftermarket head unit can be installed in any car that can accommodate a double-DIN radio unit. So, okay. All right, next we've got this. The phone stays unlocked if it's on your person, in your hand, in your pocket, etc. If you leave it on the table and walk away, it locks up. But if you handed your phone to somebody, it would stay unlocked while that person was using it or carrying it. So this is one of the features in the new, 5.1 version of Android?
I don't actually remember if it is in 5.1 or if they were proposing it for a future release. I missed that, actually.
This isn't a big thing, I guess, but
I don't know. It's pretty big. One of the things that everyone keeps trying to figure out is how do you handle things correctly when you're trying. How do you handle things to keep things both secure and convenient? So unlock passcodes, for example. You almost never, you don't see complicated passcodes for the most part because it's a pain in the ass to type in every single time your screen locks. On the other hand, if you don't have any security at all on your lock screen, then anybody can just take it and they're you. And increasingly, your phone is you. It's your identity mechanism. So trying to find the right balance between that can be tough. This makes it so that hopefully you can still be carrying the phone around without having to unlock it every time you pull it out of your pocket. And yet in certain circumstances, it will force it to prompt you to log in, to authenticate yourself. So it's trying to find this right balance between security and convenience, and it's all tough.
I think the way I've seen with the iPhone, and I guess I saw an S6 or whatever the new Samsung thing is that has the touch thing. I'm not sure how they implement it. I know on the iPhone you can just press the button and keep your finger there and it unlocks it. So that's much better than, unless you turn the phone on, then you've got to off and on, then you've got to do the finger touch and you've got to type in the password. And by default it's a 4-digit PIN, but you can make it more complex. And I'm not sure if the S6 is similar, but I think that's a good way to do it.
It's a not unreasonable way to do it. I mean, I think Google's method of the swipe pattern is actually a pretty good one. It's fast to do.
So when the feds bust your door down, all you got to do is turn the phone off and say you can't remember your password. You're covered. So, all right, and checking. Yeah, we're getting comments, but not on that on the other story. Okay, so next is one of Wi-Fi's biggest annoyances. Here, Google's fixed that, and I think this is in the new version of Android. And what it does is, the way they describe it, let's say you walk into some Starbucks or something and it has really bad Wi-Fi, and you were fine before, and with the LTE, but then you go in there, it automatically grabs it because it's a public free Wi-Fi, and it's really crappy. So all of a sudden your phone sucks, and you've got to manually cut Wi-Fi off. And I've had a similar experience where sometimes you go into a store where they've got one of those intro screens when you first go to Chrome or Safari, whatever you're using, and you have to agree to the terms of service and click continue. So all of a sudden you try to do something and it just doesn't work, and you don't realize this, and so then you have to open a browser and click on that thing. That's a pain in the ass.
Well, except for, I mean, on that one, except for the fact that you're supposed to get a notification saying that you need to sign in.
I didn't on my Note 2,
Well, maybe you should get a real phone.
says the guy with the burner phone.
Says the guy with what?
Didn't you have a ghetto phone, or have you upgraded?
I upgraded that like 2 phones ago.
Oh, okay. You were like doing the whole Star Trek thing for a while.
Samsung Insight sucked.
Yeah.
No, so this is a clever change. I think the author is a little bit confused, but basically, as I understand this, until you actually have a connection to the internet, it will leave you connected to whatever method you had before. You're also able to now say that even if you are automatically connected to the internet using a crappy connection, you can flag that connection as, no, I never want to use this, and it will never use it again in the future.
Do you have to flag it, or does it figure that out?
It says that you can flag it. So it will figure it out in certain cases, but in others, you'll need to flag it saying you don't want to ever use this connection.
Does it learn and capture data, so like if everyone says that this particular coffee shop has crappy Wi-Fi all the time, that it would know not to even try the first time?
I doubt that somehow.
Okay. All right. That would be too Scrooglish, I guess. Or they haven't thought of it. Okay, next is you're gonna have to talk about this one. The Google's created a Places API for Android and iOS, and I guess the big difference here is words, letters versus numbers.
Well, sort of. Basically, it says, okay, for a long time we've had a geolocation API, so it knows where you are. What the Places API lets you do is it says, okay, now your application can know what's around you. Google's had this sort of thing for a while. This is improving it and bringing it to directly to the Android and iOS libraries. So it's now part of Play Services, not just part of a general Places API that was available.
What's the practical? They said like if you were trying to tell somebody where you lived, you wouldn't want to give them geo coordinates. You'd want to say the example is where I was born. You wouldn't want to give them this cryptic code. You'd want to say I was born at whatever hospital
Right.
in whatever town.
This is so that given a location, you can now say, okay, this is my address. This is the address of where I am right now. So somebody with more primitive GPS systems could type that in. Plus, it lets you do things like, okay, I'm in the shopping center, and here are the stores that are around me. So now, if you're writing a review app type thing, you've got immediate access to what stores are near you right now.
Okay. So it's like a domain name versus an IP?
Sure, we'll go with that.
Last week you said, no, not at all, but we can go with that if you want.
No, I mean it's probably a correct analogy. Just most people watching understand street address better than IP address. Better. Next story, Dan.
Next is Dell is the latest to bundle Office and Microsoft apps on Android devices. So when you buy a Dell tablet or whatever, I don't think they make phones, do they? I don't know.
They probably do, but nobody buys a Dell phone or tablet. So this is, Dell is once again still trying to prove that it's relevant in the 21st century.
Seems obvious and smart. This isn't. I mean, I guess this particular story is new, but this is. And I wonder, these aren't like apps like the Sprint Zone that you can't get off your phone. This is just apps that are there, but you can delete them, or do we know?
No, I'm sure that they're set to be non-deletable.
Okay, so, but I've heard that these are good. That the Microsoft has done a really good job with their.
Yeah, no, Microsoft has done a good job.
So go Dell and Microsoft in bed together.
Oh, like they haven't been in bed together for a couple of decades now.
Yeah. Facebook is testing an Android dialer app with advanced call blocking. So if you, on the heels of the success of Facebook Home, it wasn't bad. The Home wasn't bad. I tried it, for a couple days. If you're like these kids who are constantly on Facebook, Home would be great. That's all they do on their freaking phone. And we had a discussion after the show
Get to the story, Dan.
Friday. It'll tell you. I forget. When you get the call, it'll say more information. And I guess if it's a known spammer or a known telemarketer or whatever, it'll tell you that sort of thing.
Well, that's the thing is, basically it now has a whole pile of accounts that have account names and phone numbers attached to them. So it, in some cases, has better and more accurate information than caller ID.
True.
So it can use that information to, let calls through, block calls, let you know who a call is really from. Let you know that a Facebook advertiser is calling you directly. All sorts of things it can do.
I wonder if you had a lockdown Facebook profile, so it wasn't publicly accessible, but your phone number was attached to it, and you dial someone who's not a friend on Facebook, if it would...
Good question.
What kind of security rules?
One would hope that they don't violate their privacy law, their privacy rules.
But that would be neat if let's say you had a lockdown and only your friends could know your phone number and who you were and stuff. That if you dial the phone number of that friend, it would quickly figure out it's okay to show the information. If you called some random person, it wouldn't. That'd be interesting. If you had lots of free time, I guess someone could test that. So, and they're testing it. They acknowledge that it was indeed a Facebook app, but they said it's not public yet, and it may, we have no announcements to make at this time or whatever. Okay, BlackBerry Messenger Protected, BBM Protected offers their secure instant messaging for iOS, BlackBerry, and Android. It was in the enterprise. So what this is, it's just secure texting. This isn't a big deal either, although it just begs the question: if you are interested in secure texting or messaging, what is the current go-to thing? And are other services like WhatsApp, or do they have security built in or anything?
Almost all of them have some level of security these days. What this brought to the table, if I remember correctly, is end-to-end negotiated encryption. So if I'm sending you a message, Dan, you and I exchange the security keys. We're not trusting a central server to do that. There are a couple of other apps, all of which are free as far as I know, that offer this as well these days. BBM's just a popular one. Or I'm not even sure if it's popular. It's just a well-known one because, it's BlackBerry.
Yeah, I remember their encryption got them into trouble in India several years ago. India threatened to shut them down.
That encryption, though, was encryption with BlackBerry servers. This one is even more difficult because you're not communicating with the server. You're communicating with the other person. Your message is encrypted from your device to their device. Even if it goes through BBM servers, they have no way of decrypting it.
Yeah, that was the issue with in the past. It was if a company had set up BlackBerry server for their own, you could actually control it, run the whole thing through your own server, not controlled by BlackBerry. And BlackBerry couldn't break into that. And I think it was after the Mumbai bombing, the terrorist attack, that they were all freaked out about that. Okay, so this is really interesting. There's a rumored of an unlocked program, and the analogy here, Amazon. It's from Amazon, and it sounds like Prime for Android apps, and sort of like you'd pay a monthly fee, or not. Maybe it's just for Prime people, whatever. But there'd be a bunch of Android programs that would ordinarily cost money, or have in-app purchases. And if you're in the program, that's all free. There's no in-app purchase. Everything you have full access to the things. So you're paying a monthly rate like Spotify to listen to all the music, except Taylor Swift app probably won't be in this. But I think this is very smart. What do you think?
I think it's a desperate attempt to get people to care about their platform again.
All right, we're on the same page. You don't think a lot of people use it, a lot of kids use it to get that free app of the day, which often is a shitty app. Nobody's using it.
Google made it harder to use it when they removed the App Store from Google Play.
They can't you just go to Amazon and download it?
You can go to Amazon, download it, turn off security on your Android device, and sideload it.
Okay. So their market share, their penetration's probably not going to be announced at any upcoming Amazon events.
No.
Okay. All right. So you actually shared this with me, and I looked, and this was very interesting. This link, this next one, talking about market share, and while he's explaining this, I'll look again for comments. But I guess was it who was it? The company that in 2011 predicted market share for Now, and they got one of them right, and the others were just wildly off. Especially they did not predict the demise of BlackBerry. They did not predict the surge of Android. iOS was pretty good. Gartner. Okay, so what's your take on this? And share some numbers with us.
Okay, so back in 2011, Gartner made some predictions of how did they phrase it? Sales to end users in terms of thousands of units by operating system. They predicted what each market share was going to be. So they predicted, for example, that in 2005, BlackBerry was going to have 11% of the market, and iOS was going to have 17% of the market. Microsoft was going to have 19% of the market, and Android would have 48% of the market. They are amazingly off.
Especially BlackBerry. I think they were off by a factor of 20 on the wrong
Yeah.
numbers.
BlackBerry and Microsoft, they were way, way high on. Android, they were way, they only predicted Android would have half the amount that it does have. iOS, they were pretty much on target. So they were pretty accurately predicting iOS's growth and in terms of absolute numbers, iOS did grow. They predicted that about correctly. They were way wrong with number of Android units, and way wrong on every other platform as well.
Well, you don't fault them, right? If you had to predict now in what's in 2019, you know what I mean? You'd probably be wildly off.
They made some interesting predictions, which were. I'll leave them at interesting. So, for example, they have 67% of all open OS devices will have an average selling price of $300 or below. And that's only true because almost all Android phones are $300 and below. As vendors delivering Android-based devices continue to fight for market share, price will decrease to further benefit consumers. That was spot on. Android's position at the high end of the market will remain strong. Well, no, not really. iOS is kind of edging that out, with Samsung being the only one that's even laying a vague claim there. And it does target Android for emerging markets. Research in Motion's share over the forecast period will decline, reflecting the stronger competitive environment in the consumer market. Clearly, they didn't realize just how competitive it was going to end up being. Gartner predicts that Nokia will push Windows Phone well into the mid-tier of its portfolio by the end of 2012, driving the platform to be the third largest in the worldwide ranking by 2013. That was accurate, but, they were third way, way behind numbers 1 and 2, with the exception only in a couple of markets. So no, I don't fault them, but I think it does prove they didn't really understand the market. I'm not sure anybody really did, and their predictions really were just wild ass guesses. I mean, you could picture a bunch of people sitting around a coffee table, around a meeting table, kind of, eating lunch, saying, "So, what do we think the sales for Android are going to be? I don't know. Flip a coin."
So they can get it to all their subscribers who probably pay a fortune for those numbers to make their
Right.
investment bets.
Oh, okay. It was a catered lunch.
Okay, next is Google is not giving up on Glass, Eric Schmidt says.
Well,
What's
we're
this
going to be
about?
talking about this more on Friday.
Yeah, this is coming up
Coming
Friday.
up on Friday. Yeah, this is, it pains me to say that we're quoting Eric Schmidt on this, because really, quoting him on anything is just painful.
You think he's even tried a pair on? I've never seen him with them on.
I've never seen him with him on there either,
I don't
but
think we've seen Larry wear him, have we? We've seen Eric.
We've seen Larry.
Sergey.
we've seen Larry and Sergey wear them.
When you hang out with Larry and Sergey, do they both wear them?
I can't discuss that.
Um,
My rap sessions with Larry and Sergey. I don't know. My problem with everyone quoting Eric Schmidt about this is that Eric Schmidt really doesn't feel like he knows anything about Google sometimes.
Larry Schmidt, did you just say?
I said Eric Schmidt.
I bet Sergey drinks Larry under the table when you guys hook up.
You got to remember, Sergey was raised on vodka.
Yeah, don't get in a drinking contest with a Russian. Okay, next is the shocking news. The other story we're going to talk about Friday, the incredibly just mind-blowing news that all the internet providers or a bunch of them are suing the FCC over the net neutrality thing. And while you just do a quick thing, I'll look at my post because it's got several comments. Some are pretty funny. What are your thoughts? This is obviously the most anticipated lawsuit we've.
My favorite about this is that they're saying, no, this has nothing at all to do with the fact that, they want to limit, they want to prevent us from doing things that would screw over the consumer. This is just illegal on the face of it. This has nothing to do with, with ruining how we plan to rape consumers, screw consumers over. Nothing to do with that at all.
And then I
So
see.
what comments do we have?
Okay, so this is Shocker from Anthony Ramos. Jim L. Good, kill it. Net neuters will thank them if they win. Third Eye Not Blind. Good, my internet was fine. I don't know if I've heard of these people.
Well, this is what happens when we change when we actually start the show.
Yes, I hope big companies win so we can pay more for crappy service. And my internet was fine. I got what I paid for. 10 gigabytes for $55. Quit whining, liberals. You can't have everything for free. Lol. So there. That happened. And then shout out to Brad and Jacob. TechWebcast.info. Best Australian tech show. And I don't know how to pronounce this. 8SL2K1. You should always assume that there are built-in backdoors in these quote-unquote secure apps. Greetings, Professor Falcon. Would you like to play a game? We have two programs. One is called Google Plus Week. That's every Friday night at 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. That's on YouTube Live and Google Plus, where we discuss tech with a Google Plus bent. Alan's there too. He's basically in the tank for Google. Just kidding. Also, this program is Our Android Week, which runs every Monday night, 9 Eastern Daylight Savings Time, 9 p.m., 6 p.m. Pacific, on Google Plus and YouTube Live, where we discuss all things Android. Any final thoughts, Dr. Furstenberg?
Nope.
Were you surprised? We had a quick chat with Richard and his friend Josh the other night, 19 and 17, about apps that they used. Did anything?
Yeah, we'll be talking about this more on Friday, finding out what a slice of real teenagers actually use in terms of apps.
It was you were surprised, right? You were surprised.
I was a little surprised. I used Facebook more than I thought.
You were even more surprised than when you learned that the internet companies were suing the FCC. Thank you all for watching. We appreciate it. Until next Monday, have a wonderful Android week.